What you see before you are some of the basic tools you're going to need. Of course, there's the clay, and notice that this is in an airtight container. This being water-based clay is going to be prone to drying out, and just keep in mind that you're going to have about an hour working time, unless you decide to cover your clay with a little bit of a damp cloth and put it in a refrigerator. That'll extend it a little bit, but you want to make sure to set aside an hour to create your leaf. You can always come back to it and add more clay later, like if it's dried and you want to add some additional layers to it, you can do that too. But just keep this part as moist as you can. One way you can keep it moist is to mist it periodically with just a little spray container of water. Be careful not to do too much, or else you'll make it crack later on, but that's kind of hard to do. A little boxwood tool. This is really good for making details that your fingers and your fingernails can't do. A set of calipers, which I'll explain a little bit more later. And this, which is a piece of masonite. You can also use a piece of foam core. This is going to be your canvas. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a thin layer of clay all over this in a uniform way, and then transfer a design onto that. Now, like with any work of art, what's the most important thing? Your inspiration. Whatever it is that excites you that you want to share with others. So for this particular project, I decided I wanted to make something relatively simple, but still exciting and something that people can relate to. And so what I did is to take a picture of an eagle that I took in Yellowstone years ago. And I ran it through Photoshop, got rid of the background, sharpened up the image a little bit. And if you'll notice, this is the same size as our canvas, okay? And that's very purposeful, because what we're going to do is we're going to transfer this photograph onto, maybe you can see it better that way, onto the masonite with an intermediate step of a line drawing that I made from the photograph. Now, the line drawing is meant to be just a guide that shows me where the basic shapes are, the basic direction of the feathers, that kind of thing. And the photograph I will keep handy so I can refer to it for the finer details. So how we do this, I'm going to show you in the next step here. It's a easy process. But I want you to keep in mind that this photo is not something we're copying. If you'll notice, the line drawing is already different from the photo. Like any other piece of art, it's not about copying a photo, it's about saying something. And what I want to say with this eagle is, yes, he's majestic. Yes, he's beautiful. I want to feel the wind going through his feathers, and I want to sense the intensity in his eyes. And that's what we're aiming for. And so as we work with this and build up layers of clay, and that's what's going to happen, you're going to have a little layer of clay here, and then you're going to build up layer by layer to create this image. It'll take on a life of its own, and in the end it won't look exactly like the photograph. It'll look like the feelings of the eagle, the intensity, the wind through its feathers, that kind of thing. So I'm going to take you to the next step in just a second. So here we have a little bit of clay. It's not going to take much, because really all you're going to need is a thickness of about 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch deep. And you're going to put this all over the front surface only of this panel in a fairly even way, so that you have a nice clear canvas on which to transfer the design later. So it's just a pretty straightforward process here. As you can see, the entire panel is now covered, fairly even throughout. It's covered all the way to the edges, I did smooth the edges back just a little bit just to keep it nice and neat. You can always tighten that up later when your whole relief is done. But for now, this is our starting point. And what we're going to do now is transfer this drawing. So you want to lay this right on top of the clay. Make sure it's positioned exactly the way you want it. Like so. Actually, I'm going to straighten that just a wee bit. All right, press it down. Then take a push pin like so. You can buy these at any office supply store or Walmart or places like that. And you're going to poke holes along the lines here to make a pattern. Let me demonstrate a little bit. So I'm just going to poke all the way through the clay. It's a little tedious, but it's just a really great way of transferring things. Now the other thing you could do if you wanted is just draw directly onto the clay with a pencil. Make your lines that way. But I wanted to shorten the instruction process a bit, and just for teaching purposes, and so I decided to do this way. So again, you can draw onto the clay with the basic design, or you can draw onto paper and then transfer your design by using a push pin. So let me show you what this looks like here. If you peel it back, you can see exactly where you need to go. Now I'm going to do this for the entire line drawing, and then I'll show you what we do after that. Here is the finished line drawing now transferred onto the clay. I forgot to mention a step to you with regards to the fact that since this is a wet clay and we're putting dry paper on top of the wet clay, when you peel the paper off, unless you have a layer of wax paper in between the paper and the clay, the paper is going to stick. And that's exactly what happened here, just little bits of paper. I forgot that step, my boo-boo, simply because I'm used to working with oil-based clay, and that's not a deal with that. But, and it's not a deal breaker with this either. If you don't have wax paper, just go ahead and slap the paper on there, and you can just peel the bits of paper off if you need to. But now we're going to do something that allows us to see the dimensions of the clay as we layer them on. Because without putting this in a vertical position, either on an easel or a stack of books, you're not going to get the full benefits of all of the shapes and the contours that you put into the clay. What you see before you here are two different suggestions I have for making your little clay canvas vertical. And it could be either one of these, or it could be something you devise yourself. So you can use a block of wood like this, a stack of books, or if you happen to have a small tabletop easel like this one, you can put it up there like so. You see I have a light on mine. That's not absolutely necessary. You can always just rely on the ceiling lights in your home or studio to show you how things are looking. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take little rolls of clay, like so, and these are going to be your pencil lines. You're drawing on clay with more clay, okay? And you're going to want to take this clay and put it all over the lines of the main shape here. Press it in. And you can see already how the way, because this is vertical, and I have light coming from the ceiling, and in this case the easel, that things are starting to cast shadows a little bit differently. And this little edge right here, that catches the light, and that helps form the image. So I'm going to do a little bit more on this and then show you some more things. I wanted to show you some things as I go along. I've added a few more tools to what I'm doing because it's very, very dry and hot where we are. We're in northern Colorado and it's July. I had to add a little bit of water that I can dip my fingers in periodically so the clay doesn't build up on them and affect the surfaces as I work with them with my fingers. A little rag, of course, to, again, keep wiping off my tools and my fingers if I need to. Added another boxwood tool. It just has a slightly different point. And again, it gets in places where my fingers can't. And it has two edges, one for broad sweeping strokes, and then the other for the details. And a little dental tool. All of these you can get on Amazon. This one has like a little spoon-like end to it. It's great for getting in tiny spaces, and then a little teeny knife on the other end. And it's not really a knife, it's more like a butter knife. So when you work on reliefs, I'm going to get a little bit closer here so you can see what I'm doing. You have to decide which areas are going to be sticking out the most and which are going to be receding the most. And so I decide, since I want the intensity of the eyes to be one of the most important parts of this, the eye area is going to be almost the same level as the clay support that I put on originally, so way down low. So I'm building up the high points first, okay? And then I'll go down to these areas later. So concentrating on the focal point first, kind of like a painting. You put the darkest darks, the most detail, into the parts where you want the viewer's eye to go first. There's a lot of similarity between sculpture and painting. Okay, we're going to do a few more things and I'll show you some more. I wanted to share a few more progress pictures with you. I have found that if I dip my fingers in the water and just kind of rub it over the surface a little bit, it smooths it out, helps define things, also helps keep the clay moist and workable. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that the little dotted areas that you carefully made to transfer the image, I put some clay here in the recessed area because we're going to have to anyway. And what you do is you carefully push the clay up to those lines so you don't lose your reference points. I mean, you can always draw them back in, but you worked hard to get those reference points. So I just wanted to mention that as we're going along. The other thing that I found is that if you put your tools actually in the water and then wipe it off with some toweling, it keeps your tools clean and workable so no clay buildup gets on there. Another little progress shot. So as you can see, I've worked on putting in the eye, and I put the pupil of the eye in with a pencil. Works very well. You don't have to have professional sculpting tools. Sometimes just look in your kitchen and find things that might work, like a pencil, like a butter knife. I actually finished a commission for a cheetah in a client's kitchen with a butter knife because she had me make some changes, which I didn't expect, and all we had was that knife. So use your imagination, but I concentrated on these areas right here. These are going to be the most important. This is the focal point. Everything else from here is going to be less detailed, less important. And I've found that if you take these little boxwood tools, you can go like this and make some interesting textures. But again, like a painting, put the most texture and the most interest into the focal point. So I can see putting in texture here and in here, but as you come out here, it'll probably be less and less. Okay, so I put in just a little bit of time here. We're at a little over an hour in my actual working time. And What I'm going to do now is just take my fingers. See these little clay crumbles? You may or not be able to see these on the video camera. I'm going to just remove some of the crumbles with my finger and this boxwood tool here. And then I'm going to let it dry for about another hour or so. Maybe less because it's so dry here. And you'll notice that there's some little areas that have cracked down in here, maybe a little bit here, and the edges of this are imperfect. So I'm going to tidy up those edges and maybe smooth out some area of the background because I want the background to be smooth to contrast with the highly textured areas of the eagle head itself. And then I'll show you that, and then we'll talk about ways to finish it.